All right, g'day, hi, and welcome. Behold, my two lovely Jackson Flying Bees, my beautiful PRS. How you doing, buddy? And there's an 8-string back there, and a bunch of SGs, and a bunch of other guitars, and 7 strings and stuff. Today's video. Sorry, bass in the corner. Today's video. Why it's so hard. To join a band. Well, I gotta tell you, joining bands and stuff like that, especially as you get older, like I'm 50 now, so around 50, something like that, and I ain't getting any younger, and I live in the middle of nowhere, so it's very hard for a guy like me to join bands. But when people want to join bands, it's really difficult, even in the city, because people work, especially most people that are in bands. Let's face it, most musicians don't get the best jobs. Like they're either flipping burgers or mopping floors or something. I know, you know what I mean? I mean, some musicians do really well, whatever, but most of us end up like most people, like with cash strap jobs that can't afford these kind of addictions, right? And the problem is that when you do find people that you can jam with, coordinating shift work is really, really difficult and stuff like that. So there is the nice thing about this day and age, unlike back in the 90s, okay? Like back in the 90s, it was really difficult to, to coordinate people and stuff like that because of, my drummer, he worked like the craziest shifts. I worked 2 jobs or 3 jobs at the same time. Everybody was, but somehow we made it work for, like about a year or two, year and a half. And then the drummer and I, at the time there, him and I had been in probably bands for about 4 years straight, just in this band, out of that band, into this band. And it always kind of fell apart for the same reasons. Either clash of egos, which was never my thing. I always got along with everybody. But it was either clash of egos or just people got burnt out and they couldn't make the practices. They couldn't make the gigs. Life just took over. And what usually got me out of a band was a job that would, like burn me out. But then I started thinking differently about how I approach music. So I started going with the one-man band thing quite a bit just to kind of do the jam night stuff, right? So, okay, you're not rock and rolling 4 nights a week, which playing 4 nights a week is tough. It will burn you out. I used to do that. And the thing about that is that the jam nights are a lot more leisure, and doing the one-man band thing, it was a way to stay in the music without having to commit to anything big. And if you missed a jam night, no biggie. The downside is you didn't make any money at it, and the other downside was that you're only on stage for usually about 3 songs, right? Unless you got a really good jam night where you ended up jamming with a bunch of people, or most of the things I do is like open stage rather than an actual jam night, because jam nights are basically everybody goes and plays blues, right? No problem with blues, but when you want to go up and shred some metal riffs acoustically and stuff like that and impress people with your playing, you got to kind of do your own thing, and like you're not going to be really jamming with anybody. You're just going to go up and do what you've rehearsed really well, and hopefully you don't suck at it. Not saying I never sucked at it, but what I'm saying is I had fun. But the upside to the jam nights is you usually run into people more and more. Every time I go to a jam night, I meet the how do I put this? If you've ever, it's on YouTube. It's a HBO short from back from the 90s called Session Man. And if you want to sum up, man, like every word in that, it's like Eddie and the Cruisers, the movies. Eddie and the Cruisers too. Every word in that movie is true. Session Man, that is, so many musicians will relate to that. You have to watch the Session Man one. It's really good. Am I doing for time here? Yeah. But anyway, Session Man, It's like this guy, he basically works a day job, whatever, and he gets called like, all hours of the night. Hey, you want to come down to the studio? And you go down to the studio, and the other guitar player quit, threw a tantrum, blah blah blah. Hey, let's finish up this recording. And then all of a sudden, hey, this guy's really good. We really click. Hey, you know what? Let's go on tour together. And you're like, yeah, let's do it. And then of course, everything falls apart. Well, jam nights are kind of like that. Like, people come up, oh man, hey, you know what? Here's my number. We'll get together. We'll jam. We'll do this, and then nothing comes of it, right? So it's really, really, really difficult to do that. But you do cross more paths. So one of the great things about the jam night is that that's a great way to meet more and more musicians. So you'll find out very quickly who's compatible, who's serious, who's not serious. It's like anything, You'll find out which musicians are really, really dedicated to it. And the musicians you really want to jump in with, maybe I should save this for the next topic. I don't know how much battery life I got left in my GoPro, but what musicians you should jump in with. I mean, starting from scratch, a new band each time is a real pain in the butt because you got to start right from ground one, right? But joining a band that's already existing, if you can do that, that is probably half the battle, because then you don't have to worry about writing songs. You don't have to worry, all you got to do is learn whatever they're doing. Now, the question is originals versus covers, right? For me, I want to join a band, but I want to do all originals. Maybe the odd cover. My cover band days, I think, are not over, but it's just like, no, I'd rather play just 10 songs for one set for 45 minutes or an hour. With me, I tend to write a lot of music, so I'd rather do that, okay, than have to play a whole 3-hour night of covers, because I know what it's like to play your own songs live, even if the audience doesn't know your songs. It's really cool. And then when you do get, like, we had one guy that followed the band back in the 90s. It was a band called Syndicate. We had a female singer, and I think he was in love with the singer. So it was like, he follows around, but he actually learned, he would sing the words back to us and stuff like that. Like, only guy in the audience. So this guy was pretty cool. He was pretty fun. And stuff like that. And it was really, really cool. You know what I mean? It was really, really cool. But I found it was a lot easier to write original songs than it was to try to learn covers, because everybody was always judging you how you were playing the cover in comparison to the original band, especially when you're talking about electric guitars and stuff. Acoustics, people always let you away with the acoustics because it's a completely different version, right? But yeah, so there's that. But yeah, that's one of the things. If you're having a hard time, especially if you're younger, if you're in your 20s, like, I mean, or your teens or whatever. The teens, the nice thing about the teens is you have summers off usually, and maybe you'll work like I did as a teenager or whatever. But I did, like, most of my jam stuff or band stuff was when I was a teen, from about 13 to 20, 24, 25. Well, no, I would have been 22, I guess. 22 or 23 years old. That was most of my, and that's probably most people is probably going to be, like most of your rock and roll days are going to be that. And I'm now 50, right? Ish. I'm either 49 or 50. I freaking forget. Doesn't matter. But the thing I do notice, and I'm going to wrap it up pretty soon, is that doesn't matter your age. You can still find, especially in this day and age. Now, me, I'm a bit of a tech tard, so I don't know how to coordinate online with people. But that's a lot of ways people can, practice and stuff, and then get together once in a while, make sure everything's good. Because you do have to practice at concert volume. Because if you don't, all the jamming in the world online is not the same as having, something like that moving your pant legs. It's a lot different on stage because different rooms, the sound comes back to you differently. Usually takes a song or two just to adjust to the sound not coming back to you. The sound man, depending on the sound man, if you're the sound man, a lot of people don't know always put way too much reverb in the PA. And it messes things up, and you can't hear, and you sound like horrible. But if you got a good sound man, you can do a lot with little. But you do have to practice in real time, face to face. But you can do get the parts down online. So anyway, I'm going to leave it at about that. Hopefully that's a semi-helpful tip. Nice little tip on a rainy day. But anyway, there we go.